Welcome to the Financial Freedom Podcast with your host, Lorna Poole, sharing the secrets to creating wealth, investing, and that all-important money mindset. To find out more and accelerate your journey to financial freedom, head on over to www.lornapoole.com to get started. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Financial Freedom Podcast. Would you like to know how to convert your tax liabilities into revenue-producing assets? Well, my guest expert today, Jonathan Krueger, is financially engineers life insurance products for maximum tax-free internal rates of return. Not normally seen in this low-risk asset class, Jonathan represents clients as a fiduciary, and his team negotiates all aspects of health ratings, design, and returns to ensure the highest rates of return possible. Jonathan, great to have you here.
Lorna, thank you for having me.
So tax liabilities, what are we talking about?
Well, anytime that you have to write a check to your favorite uncle, and his name is Uncle Sam, if you're in the U.S., or the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, that is a tax liability. And so what we're talking about is what are those revenues and what are the sources of those revenues that generate those tax liabilities that would require you to owe more to the IRS or possibly to your favorite uncle.
Okay. And so you're talking about like knowing, so say with investments, am I getting this right, that there's ways that there's tax liabilities, okay? And there's ways to reduce this, and there's ways to make more revenue return back into your assets.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah. If I could expound on that a little bit more, Lorna, I'd be happy to. So, oftentimes as a business owner, we think of, or even high income earners, you think of, well, I have my standard deduction, I have these write-offs that I can make, but that's really all I have. And it was interesting as we studied more about tax code, which is not a real riveting subject for most people. And certainly it takes a desire to understand how to be able to have more tax-free streams of income or keep more of what you have. If you want to dive into that world of understanding and looking at these strategies, that it was a Judge Lerner's hand. I'll misquote him, but he had said years ago, he said there's a tax code that's the same for everyone, but there's two types of people, those that are informed and those that are uninformed. And really the tax code is designed for those that are informed to be able to take advantage, and when I say advantage, to be able to appropriately use the tax code towards the reducing their own tax liability of what they owe to the government. And rich or poor alike, people do it, and they've been doing it for many, many years, really since the tax code was ever put into place in the early 1900s. So when you think of what is it that I don't know, and am I limiting myself to what I could be using as a tax deduction or a tax credit, and then it just takes an understanding of the tax code or law to be able to see and understand what you could be utilizing and to take advantage of those tax codes for your benefit as well as for the greater good. And so what I mean by that, and we started off talking about life insurance, is life insurance originally, when most people think of it, Lorna, how do you think of life insurance when you hear that term? What do you think life insurance is typically used for, as most people think?
To screw me. No, life insurance is used to protect your income or protect your asset.
Right. Yeah. If you die, right. And you're right. Most people, when they think of insurance companies, they go, "Oh, that's just another company that's going to screw me over." And you wouldn't be wrong in that assumption, because it's closer to, when we reviewed life insurance of itself in the insurance industry, we were surprised to find that close to 90 to 95% of all the policies that are in place that we reviewed had 4 problems with them. And if you don't mind, I'll share those 4 problems and kind of go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So the first problem that we found with most life insurance policies is that they were designed around the death benefit and not around for an estate plan, which isn't wrong. But when they were sold as an investment vehicle, they were not constructed or engineered in fashion to match that of what the tax code allowed for. So that was a real concern. So the first problem is they were poorly constructed, and they were just a retail product, not a institutional or wholesale product. Second, they were set up with the wrong expectations. So the person who bought the policy didn't understand what they were buying it for, or appropriately how to fund it. Third problem was most of them were just the wrong company. There was better products on the market at the time that they bought that policy, and they could have gotten a better policy altogether. Or fourth, it was the wrong ownership. And meaning that instead of them owning it personally, they should have had it owned by a trust or their business, but they just didn't think through the implications of from a tax code or from an estate plan, what that would really look like. So, you think about that. That's if 90 to 95% of all policies in force have one of those four things wrong with it. You would think, well, how can it be that the insurance industry continues to thrive if it's that much that's wrong with these policies being designed? And honestly, if year after year this industry continues to thrive, continues to be able to make profits even in down economies. And when we think about a pharmacist or even a physician, if a physician was to go out and make a wrong recommendation or diagnosis, and 9 out of 10 times, that would cause for a lot of injuries and people being hurt. Or if you think of a pharmacist out there prescribing or issuing the wrong drugs, when someone was diagnosed and prescribed something, and 95% of the time they were mixing them up with other drugs, and all of a sudden you'd have mass pandemonium, type of everyone would be in hysteria. But yet it's that type of thing that's happening in the insurance industry. So we have to dive into understanding more about the insurance industry from what was the tax code designed for, and were there any companies that permitted for a policy to be designed around the purpose and the intent of how the tax code is written. And we found there's a handful. There's certainly not the majority, but there are a handful of companies that really are still in alignment with an individual having the right type of contract that can be engineered for their benefit versus only the benefit of the insurance agent or for the insurance company. And when we thought through it, we had to compare it to like a homeowner's policy. Most of us have homeowners policies or renters insurance, and typically you would have that in case there's some type of disaster. And that's the same way most people would have life insurance, would be for a death benefit. If their loved one that's a major income earner died, then it would replace income. And, I've gone to many funerals over the past, and even most recently my own mom. And one question that everyone always asks is, did they have any life insurance? It's that quiet reminder of, did they have life insurance? Are they going to be okay? And, it's interesting is that most people think of that, but it would be surprising, Lorna, to learn that most people don't actually have it. Most people don't. There's over 60% of Americans don't have life insurance, anything outside the group policy. And the group policies weren't really designed to ever be their own policy. It's just an employee benefit. And so
but actually designed to, insurance companies, financial companies, they design them to confuse you. And then, even you're there talking about like the taxes that are not, they're not designed around the tax codes or whatever. Like an everyday individual is not going to know that. Absolutely.
Well, and it wouldn't surprise you, Lorna. I had been selling term insurance and teaching people to invest the difference and to get out of debt for my first decade in this field. And it's really because I was passionate about teaching people the right behaviors and what to look for to minimize those expenses. And during that time frame, I analyzed the first 10 years that I was doing this. I analyzed over 2,000 life insurance policies, and I only found 4 that were properly structured to be in the benefit of the individual and not the insurance agent or the insurance company. Only 4.
That's awesome.
I knew what I was looking for. And I was like, when I saw those policies, I said, I don't know how these are designed or who sold them to you, but this is what you would want of the life insurance policy. And that means, in my mind, what would you want of a life insurance policy? Well, I'd want to be able to invest as much as possible, have a reduced overall costs for the management of that money with no downside. I'd want to be able to withdraw anytime I needed it, and not be penalized by the IRS for withdrawing the funds prior to age 59 and a half for retirement. I'd want to be able to have a positive arbitrage, meaning I could make more money on my money than what I could borrow it at if I needed to borrow that money out of the policy. And I could pass it on to my kids or my wife, tax-free. That's, in my mind, one of the perfect investments. And if it costs you nothing, how much of it would you really want?
Yeah.
Well, I think if you're like me, Elvis would be thinking, well, if it cost me nothing, I would want as much as I could get. Well, so that's how we designed our policies. And what we found is that the actual cost of the insurance, when it's structured correctly, only costs about 1 to 1.5% over any 20-year time frame. Well, that's more in alignment with actually having a financial advisor and having your money managed, is if it's about 1 to 1.5%. That's more fair. That's kind of in alignment with what the industry is doing. But the insurance world certainly has not been that way. And you think through it, it really gave us an opportunity where we could start to structure policies that similar to that of a homeowner's insurance policy. If you think through what's the pricing, insurance companies, let's use State Farm as an example here in the States, if they only covered Northern California, and that was the only area that they wrote insurance policies on, and they knew that every year there was a likelihood of 100 homes that they insured, all 100 of them to be burnt down because of wildfires, that would be a pretty expensive homeowner's insurance policy, because of the renewals every year would have to essentially be the cost of a new home, because they knew everyone was going to burn down. But they've expanded their territory throughout the U.S. and nationally so that they could reduce the cost of the insurance. So for 1,000 homes that are covered, they only knew that a few were going to burn down, right? Well, let me just ask you, when it comes to life insurance, they price it similarly, so they spread the cost of the insurance for how many people are actually going to die. How many people do you think actually keep life insurance policies if they've got them, and they've funded them at all? For what period of time do you think most of them hold on to them until they die?
Do I think people hold on to them till they die?
Yeah, that would be the first question.
See, I think a lot of people don't understand life insurance, and they get sold a lot of extras that they don't need. But what I'm not understanding is, how are we converting tax liabilities into revenue producing assets?
Well, let me explain this, because then it'll all come clear.
Okay.
So the life insurance industry.
Yeah.
If someone has a cash value policy,
yeah,
right? How many people out of 100 do you think would keep that until they die?
Very little.
You're right. It's only about 8%. So 8 people out of 100 actually keep the policy until they die. But even term insurance, where it's just straight death benefit, no cash value, it's even lower. It's only 1 to 2%.
Yeah.
So what we found is that we had an undervalued asset. So the undervalued asset was meaning that there's 92 other people paying for 8 people to receive the benefit.
Okay.
And so we found an undervalued asset where, because of that, it reduced the internal cost of the administration of the policy. And then when we structure it correctly, we can make sure that everyone that has a policy is structuring it for the tax code. So the tax code that's used for this was actually written prior to the Roth IRA. In the U.S., we have the Roth, which means that you can put in a certain dollar amount per year based upon your age, and that it will grow as long as you've held that account for 5 years and it's growing, the value of it, those funds will grow tax-free and tax-exempt. Well, they essentially had just taken the tax code that was used from the life insurance tax code and modified it to make the Roth IRA tax code. The life insurance tax code is the same, except it doesn't have a limit. There's not a limit of how much you could put into it. That's all based upon your age and underwriting. When you take a look at when could you withdraw it, there's no limitation from when you can withdraw the funds from it. And if structured appropriately, those can all be tax-free for income or for death benefit. And so we were able to find an anomaly within the industry that allowed us to capture more tax-free revenues. So that's one piece. But when you ask, how do you convert tax liabilities into income-producing assets? One is understanding that you do have an issue. All of us are charitably inclined, or I'd like to think so. And when we pay the IRS, if we had the option of being able to gift that to a charity and receive a tax credit or deduction, then it would make sense to do so if it allowed for us to have a reduction of what we owe to the IRS or that you'd be for your tax federal or state liabilities. When we use tax credits or deductions, we're having to think of outside the normal. You have your normal deductions, the standard deduction, but if you're a high income earner or a business owner, there are other strategies that allow for you to be able to reduce that even further, to be able to use not only your standard deduction, but also other deductions. And so whether it's used from different tax credits, such as, or if you're a business owner, you may be able to have segregated cost segregation for how you spend your money or the purchasing of different assets or costs and materials. Or you may be able to structure it so that you're able to take those same dollars that you owe to the IRS and invest it. In the past, it's been land conservation easements. It may be if you're selling one business to another, or one property for another property using a 1031 exchange. You may even take a look at opportunity zones of what that benefit could be for tax deferral and allowing for that to be have some tax strategies or benefits there. Or you may look at solar or oil and gas or education or R&D. All of those are different tax credits that oftentimes our CPAs and bookkeepers don't have the time or bandwidth to have the expertise in knowing to provide good recommendations and how to use each of them as part of an overall strategy. And so, and it's not to blame them. It's just as professionals, they all get busy doing what makes them money, and they get focused on the accounting piece of it, which is usually looking through the rearview mirror for what happened last year rather than how to plan for this year, the next year, the years come. We believe that we're historically in one of the lowest tax brackets that we will have seen in my generation at least, and that it will more than double in the future. So
you're saying life insurance is a low tax bracket?
Well, life insurance, once you use the tax credits or you pay for your taxes and you're wondering, well, where do I put my excess money? You can then reinvest it into one of three areas. Life insurance is one, Roth IRA is another, or munis is possible. And there's a couple others, but you're very limited on how to reposition those assets so they grow tax-free and then provide a tax-exempt or tax-free income. And that's what I'm discussing. So life insurance in and of itself can be structured so that for tax benefits prior to those revenues being taxed if you're a business owner, and then also position for tax-free income later on.
Thank you, Jonathan. This has been amazing. John, for anyone listening to this and they're like, oh, okay, I get this. I need to do something about, working tax more in my favor. What's that kind of one thing you want to leave them with? Is the most important thing they do or think about or get sorted?
Lorna, thank you for that. Two things. One would be you need to have a team that can collaboratively work together to provide the best overall design and recommendations for you once you know the purpose that you have for your money. Yeah. And we often find that when we do that, we're able to reduce our client's tax liability by over 68%. It'll average 48 to 68% based off the individual's situation, but that's typical. So 48 to 68% tax reduction based off of using these strategies when they're collaboratively designed and engineered by fiduciaries.
Perfect. And John, how does somebody get in contact with you?
Well, you can visit our website, which is www.lionsgateadvisors. You're probably familiar with the Lionsgate Entertainment Company. We're not the same company, but it's spelled the same way, lionsgateadvisors with an ORS.com. And please visit us there if you'd like to learn more about our tax reduction strategies or why we believe that there's an impending tax train coming. Please visit the documentary on our podcast or our podcast as well, where you can listen to or watch a movie called The Power of Zero, The Tax Train is Coming, and feel free to be able to go ahead and register for that. You'll be sent the passcode, and I think it would be worthwhile for any of you and all of you, regardless of which state or nation that you're in, to be able to see what we believe is going to happen in the U.S., but also could impact everyone globally.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing your insights. There's so much to learn on tax that I have personally learned a lot of this conversation.
Well, thank you, Lorna. Thank you for having me.
Hey, everyone. Remember to join us in the Private Financial Freedom Podcast Facebook group with me, your host, Lorna Poole. This is a safe haven of like-minded wealth-getting go-getters who, like you, are on their journey to creating financial freedom in their life. This is where you and I can get intimate. I can give you the support and guidance to go from where you are now to where you want to be, developing your wealth mindset and creating your financial freedom life. Join at www.facebook.com/groups The Financial Freedom Podcast. You will see the links to this on the website. It's in the show notes, or type it into the Facebook group. All you have to type in is Financial Freedom Podcast, and you will see us there. Look forward to seeing you in the group. Take care. Thank you for joining us on the Financial Freedom Podcast, to creating wealth, investing, and developing your money mindset. To get started today on your journey, head on over to www.lornapoole.com and grab your free course, 5 Steps to Breaking Free from Your Poverty Mindset and Accelerating Your Journey to Financial Freedom. See you there.